Alright guys, welcome back to the channel. So today we're talking about Jepi because the performance relative to the rest of the market so far in 2022 and really since its inception has been really phenomenal. Doing a direct comparison between Jepi and the S&P 500, which by the way is supposed to be the loose benchmark, we can see that year to date Jepi is down 13.19%. So it has declined in price, but the S&P 500 is down 21% in that same time period. Now the difference actually gets even larger when taking a look at the total return of these assets, which by the way, that includes things like the dividend, which is a pretty big component of Jepi. So from December 2021, pretty similar period, the S&P 500 is down 27.28%. And in that same time period, Jepi is down 6.04%. A huge difference. So on top of the price just being more stable overall, this massive 13.5% dividend yield paid out on a monthly basis has a huge effect on the return. In fact, the most recent dividend payment was 62 cents per share, which is the highest ever, and that's during a time of extremely high market volatility and recession fears. Okay, so the question is, why is Jepi doing so much better than the rest of the market? And to help answer this, I found a pretty useful article, which is, will the relative outperformance continue when it comes to Jepi and the S&P 500? So in the beginning of the article, he goes through the basics of what Jepi is. I've made tons of videos on this. I'm not going to rehash it here, but to put it simply, Jepi is a hybrid ETF, 80% equities, 20% ELNs, which are essentially call options every month to help generate consistent income. And just like with other call options, that does limit your upside potential during a bull market. But this is a hybrid. The other 80% is equities, although they tend to be more conservative equities. And speaking of the equity selection in Jepi being more conservative, that's the first major point here when it comes to the relative outperformance of Jepi against the market. So both Jepi and SPY hold large cap stocks, and many of their holdings do indeed overlap. A big difference here is that Jepi holds a more concentrated portfolio with about 100 individual stocks, and they have a proprietary selection process. And here's a bit more info on that process. But essentially they screen for value. As a result of such value-oriented approach, you can see that Jepi holds more value-oriented stocks than the general S&P 500. As a result of the above index differences, the outperformance of Jepi over SPY in the past year or so was largely due to the severe correction of the growth sector. So that huge chasm between growth and value stocks in the current market, this article is attributing that to the outperformance of Jepi. And to illustrate that, year-to-date, VTV, which is the General Vanguard Value ETF, is down 11%, and VUG, the Growth ETF, is down basically 30%. If we add the S&P 500, it's going to be somewhere in the middle, and relative to the general market, Jepi is skewed towards value, which is doing better. So if we go ahead and add Jepi to this graph, we can see where it lies. And the point that the article is trying to make is that long-term, generally, growth does perform better than value. In fact, if we zoom out to the past 5 years, we can see that. Okay, and then the second point here is the whole ELNs and the long-term performance. And I'm not going to bore you in reading all this, but essentially they're saying that ELNs and call options limit upside potential, so long-term it's going to have worse total returns. Now, I don't know if I fully agree with this logic because the whole field of option overlay ETFs is relatively new and unproven, and products like Jepi are pretty cutting edge, being that they're a hybrid version of these. So when it comes to these high quality hybrid covered call ETFs, my prediction is as following. Once these funds are around long enough to do this actual comparison, I think you're going to see when you zoom out to the past 5 years, the price action overall is going to be lacking slightly, in a similar way that value funds tend to lag the market over long periods of time. But I don't think the price action is going to lag that much because of the hybrid nature of these ETFs. They do give you lots of exposure to US equities. But remember, the point of the performance limiting covered calls is to generate a very high consistent level of monthly income along the way. So even if funds like Jepi do lag behind during bull markets, all it takes is a year like 2022 for them to catch up. I mean, remember, just year to date, total return, Jepi is down 20% less than the market. Now you guys know Divo is one of my favorite hybrid covered call income ETFs, and it has a bit more of a track record than Jepi. And since the inception date, it has annual returns, total returns of 11.34%. And over that same time period, the S&P 500 has returns of 11.59%. So the argument that long-term these hybrid ETFs with covered calls will always underperform the market, I just don't think is accurate. And that's especially true if we have more recessions and choppy markets in the future. But of course, that's just my take on the whole situation. Leave a comment down below. Let us know what you think of these hybrid covered call income ETFs. Are they a good long-term play, or is this just a special time that they are benefiting from? Let us know in the comments. If you guys are still watching and enjoyed, I appreciate a like. Go ahead and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.